Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to View with Mike G, the show of life, the show of education, hospitality, podcasting, making a movie, and ruining a Marvel sequel. Today's guest is the amazing industry veteran himself, Mr. Erick Castro of Boilermaker NYC, Polite Provisions, and now this most recent project, Simple Serve. He and Chris Patino serving the industry in a branding, marketing, and competitive analysis way from within the industry for the industry. We'll learn more about that here in the future, but he and I sat and chatted about his new movie, Bartender at Large, a podcast-turned road-tripping full-length movie. We chatted right before the screening about Erick's proclivity towards creativity, moving to the next target, and he learned how to be a filmmaker in the process. The Bartender at Large movie is a great shift from the podcast, and I really encourage us all to check this out together. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this great chat with the legend himself, Mr. Erick Castro.
When it first came out, it's kind of evolved into something else. When we first started it, maybe we've been on we're getting close to a year now, and it was one of those things where it's like we first just started out. It was it was just people joke around talking about the first time they got hammered,
right?
Kind of just usual stories, and it's like I feel like as with time, it's like evolved into something a little more intense.
Yeah.
For instance, I mean, this last episode, one of our most popular episodes we've had so far is talking about like how to deal with social anxiety and career burnout, and we just in
like valuable.
And you kind of feel
lessons,
like before we recorded, I was like, oh man, this is kind of a downer. I wonder if people aren't going to dig it as much. But you're like, you can't censor yourself. So all right, let's just go with it, And the feedback from it. I mean, we've just gotten tons of emails and messages and on Facebook and Instagram on it, and it's just so cool. There's something everybody's dealing with and something we need to confront.
We're people, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I own a distillery, so I'm on a little bit different side of the business, right? But you guys we're all friends,
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, what is a friend? And I had a conversation last night with this guy, great dude from Dallas, and he's been divorced twice. Mm-hmm. He's got a kid, and I'm like, yeah, I know you work in the industry, but how often do you really go deep with somebody? And that, to me, is like a larger problem, like an epidemic, in that it's so transactional at the time.
Yeah.
You never get that deep. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I feel obviously it's like I feel like it's unique in terms with hospitality trade that most of us got to where we are because we have good social skills and we're good at interacting with people. Yeah. So we tend to treat others with respect and dignity, and we treat people well. So It's like it's really easy to make tons of acquaintances.
Yeah.
But with that said, I would say if you feel like a good vibe with somebody, don't feel like it has to stop there just because you're colleagues.
Right.
I have a lot of friends in the industry that just started out as a colleague where it's like, oh, he's another bartender. And then next thing you know, I went to their wedding.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's like, don't be afraid to to cross over from a business relationship to a friendship. If the chemistry's there, and the empathy's there, and you sincerely care about this person, then
pretty open to it. Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. It's hard because we're all performing, in a way, right? To get things, and sometimes it's hard to just take that mask off and be like, man, I feel like fucking shit right now. My body hurts. I don't feel very confident. Stuff that happens as we get older. It's really kind of interesting. But man, we're going to talk about the podcast and the video series. We'll talk about the movie as well, which is here screening at the Alamo Drafthouse, South Lamar at 2 p.m. I feel like I get some radio things going on here. Yeah. But dude, you're a James Beard nominee. You've worked in San Francisco, San Diego, Polite Provisions, but
the New York, I have the bar.
I know, Boilermaker New York.
Don't forget about that bar.
I know, because we got to talk about that too, because you've got a fucking reign here in the States, and I just wonder where this all started. Are you a Cali guy?
Yeah, I grew up in Southern California. What it comes down to is I think it's I'm one of those people who I'm happiest when I'm overwhelmed with work. Like I do
like a workaholic, I think is what they call it.
Kind of, but it's like it can't just be work though. I have to be challenged. So it's like, if I'm just doing grunt work, 60 hours a week, to me that doesn't really do much for me. Like I need to be like challenged. That's why I like bartending so much, because every day is different.
Something new.
It's like running bars, and it's like, especially at this stage now, it's like where I feel like one day I'm helping to edit a movie.
Yeah.
And the other day I'm like, bartending till 2 a.m. Another day I'm like looking over like schematics for like a bar build, and it's just like I like it because every day is different. So it allows me to not be a workaholic, but like it allows me to work a lot without experiencing fatigue from doing the same thing over and over.
That's a great point. There are no parameters the way you're talking about. It's like, well, I want to learn about it still. All right, well, get still design. I'll go down to Mexico. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's pick up something else.
Because most of the time, I think when people say they get sick of work, it's because they're sick of like the repetition.
Yeah.
But if it's different every day, then it's like you're constantly being challenged.
Is that why you look so youthful?
Yeah, I like to think so.
For some reason, you still have a smile on your face after all of these years, after all of this stuff going down. But so, what are you talking about? Southern California, San Diego originally, or?
Yeah, I grew up just north of San Diego, in a small town called Hemet. That's like between LA and Palm Springs.
Yeah. What kind of? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a good little town. It wasn't really that small of a town. It was like 100,000 people or something.
Okay.
But growing up as a kid, it's just Southern California, that feels small.
Yeah, it does.
Because I guess between San Diego, LA, and Palm Springs, it just feels like a smaller place. But yeah, I had a good time growing up there.
What kind of stuff were you? Were you like a skate kid? Were you a band kid?
I was a weird kid, man. I was a weird kid who got in a lot of trouble. But I was one of those kids who was like, I was like really nerdy, and all I did was read.
Yeah. What the hell were you? Classic literature? Choose your own adventure books?
Ooh, I was reading crazy shit when I was a kid. Like there's this, I forget the name of the author, but there was like a Beatles book, like a biography.
Oh, the massive one?
The 1,700-page one?
Yeah.
I read that in 5th grade.
Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Because of the love of the Beatles or music?
I love the Beatles. I was like obsessed with the Beatles from like maybe like 2nd grade on till today.
It doesn't ever go away, does it?
But I just remember being a kid, and I was just a really strong reader. I wasn't good at sports or anything else.
Yeah.
Because it turns out I needed glasses. Nobody knew.
Yeah.
And I read that book. In 5th grade.
Because it's the one that talks about the song meanings and how it's all of it.
Yeah, and it talks about them like meeting the Maharishi and taking LSD and all that. And just like, and I remember like my teacher just being like, what the fuck is this kid reading? Did
you even like so thinking about acid as a 5th grader?
No, but I knew what it did.
Yeah,
and I ended up taking it just a few years later.
Oh, there you
maybe not a few years later, but it's too
it was
soon.
A few weeks. It was
too soon. But I felt like as a kid who like I grew up, I didn't grow up with a lot of money, and to me like books were like an escape.
Yeah.
So it's like, reading about, even things like The Mouse and the Motorcycle and all these books on adventure, I definitely geared towards adventure.
Yeah.
And science, and like I was fascinated with like Bigfoot and UFO and all that stuff. And I felt like that was my escape. And we didn't have the internet back then, so
we had to do it the old way.
You had to go to the library and just pour over the Dewey Decimal System until you found something you wanted. And
it was funny because you'd find the nugget of those numbers, like I couldn't tell you what they mean now, but it's like the 500 to 505.
And then if you couldn't find a book, you were so bummed.
Yeah, I know.
You went, you're like, oh, it's missing.
There's only 5 numbers.
Yeah.
Analog world, man. It's totally different. So is that can I make the assumption that you were pretty good at school then?
Until then all of a sudden like then in like 8th grade the wheels just came off.
Is it the girls?
Yeah, I became like a little truant. And
yeah.
I became a bad kid, and then actually I stopped going to high school a couple times and got kicked out a couple times. And
ever regret that decision?
No, I ended up going back. Believe it or not, I graduated on time.
Oh, killer!
I failed the first semester, completely failed, straight Fs.
Yeah.
The first semester of my junior year, my sophomore year. So like, in order for me to graduate, then by then I kind of started straightening myself out. By my mid-junior year, I was like, okay, cool, I need to graduate. So what I did was like, I went to like a continuation school and took like a double load, which is way easier in continuation school. So I just did a bunch of stuff. Then I went to college over the summer. I took summer school and took 2 college night classes.
Oh, killer!
And then that's like almost like an entire semester right there.
That's more than most people that were just doing it regularly could do.
And then that kind of blew my mind because the summer school was just like, it was repetition. It was just like, paraphrasing stuff out of these books. And like, this sucks. High school sucks. And then I was 17, right? And I was just turned 17. I was going to night classes at college, and they were like challenging me to think. what does this mean?
Right.
Writing a paper.
Apply
why did
it.
this? Yeah. And then all of a sudden I was just, and I got straight A's. I got A's in both college classes, and I got a B in the daytime high school class.
That's incredible, yeah.
And it was just like, I was like, whoa, college is cool. It's like they actually challenge you to think rather than just, make you memorize facts and dates.
Shit.
And I remember it was funny because when I transferred those and used those credits to go back to college, like my guidance counselor at the time was like, oh, that's curious. You got two A's.
Opposite of what we're supposed to be doing here.
Yeah, he was so mad. He thought I cheated. He thought I paid somebody else to take classes.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he accused me of it as well.
Two
To
college
my face.
classes, dude.
Yeah, he accused me.
Oh, that's bullshit.
He accused me of cheating, and I was like, okay, whatever. We'll look into it if you want.
Or you're just smarter than they ever gave you credit for.
Yeah, and then he just never followed up on it. So I knew he kind of put it all together. But it just reminded me like this is actually how I try to treat my staff and stuff. Where it's like they need to be challenged intellectually.
Yeah,
they need to be. You can't just throw people into a position and be like, okay, you're trained to go to work.
Right.
Like staff needs to be constantly trained. They need to be constantly stimulated. They need. I feel like it's the meaning of life is meaningful work.
Absolutely.
Or is a life with meaning. I've heard that expression before.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me where it's like you need to have something to challenge you. So it's like I try to operate all my businesses.
It's part of it's part of a culture, right? Like,
yeah.
You want to be a leader. You want them to be leaders. Good. You want to be motivated and learn new things where there is no ceiling.
Yeah.
Fucking that comes from you, which is a true testament to the kind of guy that you are.
Yeah, man. You're just yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I just told you more than I've ever said in any interview before.
What, really?
It's awesome, man.
See, all right, we're done then, I guess, Eric. No, but so I can tell that's the weird thing about school, and that's why and I'm not going to turn this into like a larger political conversation, but people were like, education's fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, it's because the smart kid passed 2 college classes and you thought he cheated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's endemic. It's just this way we feel about kids. Like, just do the fucking work.
Yeah, I feel like we handled 2 kids, especially I feel like this generation coddles children way too much.
Oh, yeah.
They are way smarter than we give them credit for,
Totally.
and they can deal with way more than we understand. Like, I mean, I remember, like I mentioned growing up, in that generation, it's like we had bikes, we had BMX bikes, and we, your mom,
my knees are fucked still,
would send you to the store. Like I was 7 years old. Hey, Eric, go to the store and buy some lemons.
Right.
And she'd give me money, and I just lock my bike up and. A little kid going to the store, and like today, if like a 7-year-old kid did that, they would call the police for like child endangerment.
Yeah, doesn't it seem like just completely different world?
Even though the world and the crime rate is drastically lower, and the world is safer today, America's safer today than it's ever been, right? In terms of like crime rates. So, but I mean, it's just anything. I feel like it gives kids like a sense of autonomy.
Yeah,
like if they're not made of glass.
Exactly. Let them lose their bike and have it get stolen.
Yeah, right? I learned. Yeah. My bike got stolen, and guess what? I learned a lesson from it.
Don't fucking leave it outside, right?
It was heartbreaking.
It totally was.
It was heartbreaking, but it was one of the most valuable lessons I've ever received in my life. You know why?
You don't know.
Because it reminded me that life is not fair.
Yes.
And that sometimes bad things happen to good people, and you just deal with it.
But it is always unfair. But if you look at it and you take a step back, it's just as bad as it is good. And it all evens out in the end.
Yeah, and you have to think about it. You're like, okay, what could I have done differently to have prevented my bike from being stolen? I could have blocked it.
How many times did you get a bike stolen after that?
Never.
Lesson learned.
Yep.
You live and you learn, right? So was higher ed kind of the pursuit for you? So you mentioned the 2 college classes. Did you say, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to get a degree? Yeah.
And then after that, I think I hadn't even really thought about college or anything at that stage. I was just like, I just need to graduate from high school.
Yeah.
Then I ended up going to San Diego State. And then while I was at San Diego State, was a big turning point. My roommate was waiting tables at this restaurant nearby. I was like, oh, hey, man, you should come by. We're looking for a busser. And I was like, okay, cool. I need money, because it's like working minimum wage, it wasn't cutting it. So I started busting tables. Next, as time went by, I moved my way up to pretty much every position there until I became a bartender.
Yeah. Was it interesting work for you? Like,
I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it. I love everything about restaurants.
Just you like people, I imagine too.
Yeah,
just a people person.
And I like the idea of just come in, sit down, we got you.
Yeah,
like there's something just transformative about that.
Was it like that? Are you like really close to your family now?
Yeah.
Is it something that you kind of learn at home? I think hospitality is somewhat learned,
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, a lot of it, I think, was cultural for me, and I don't know. But my parents, I'm Mexican American. My parents came from Mexico, so I think there's something about just like the Latin culture that's just very like, I've actually read a little bit of like some history books on it, and one of the theories has to go like Mexico's climate can be pretty unforgiving, especially in the 1800s. So the only way you could survive was by relying on your neighbor, and then your neighbor relying on you. So because of that, it's just like, oh, come on in here, have some food, have some bread. Here's a glass of water. Here's whatever we have to drink, and it's like everyone survives by sharing. So
working together,
and then California, the entire Southwest, pretty much being so heavily influenced by Latin culture.
Yeah,
I honestly feel like because of that, the residue is like what has influenced me so much in restaurants and bars, where it's like people come into the bar like, welcome to the bar, grab a seat, server will be with you in just a second.
It's
like
community.
Everybody communicates, and it's like, I mean, it's such a good feeling. I love it when I walk into a venue and I'm extended that courtesy, and so it's like a privilege and like a duty to offer the same when people come into my spaces.
In a way, it's like you were meant to do it. Some people, it's weird because I really get this sense from you that this was your calling. There was really not a lot of doubt, right?
There was nothing else I was going to do.
I talk to people all the time. It's like, I was in sales. Like, fuck, sales? And like, and then I quit that shit. Well, of course you do. No one sticks in sales.
I know.
Right? But I mean, do you ever like look back and reflect and stuff and say, shit, this has actually been a wonderful thing that life has given me, this thing that I truly enjoy.
Yeah, I don't think there was ever any point I thought I was ever going to do anything else.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So obviously, God, I mean, there's so many places that you've worked at. Has it been a pretty fulfilling experience and challenging? Like you've worked at Rick House, obviously you've got Polite Provision in San Diego. Is that stuff was it challenging? Like each step, was each one have like this particular? It was a particular chapter of your life?
Yeah, I mean, all things are. Yeah, everything's gonna be a challenge, and those are my favorite projects. You always want the projects to be a bit of a challenge. Otherwise, if they're not, then you're going to have a million competitors because everybody's going to want to do the same thing you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So you need to have something that sets you apart. So the big thing for us is that, now looking at something like Rick House, a project that Rick House, we're looking at, 8 years later.
Yeah.
It's easy to see why it was a success. Like, oh, such and such. Of course, we opened up a bar where there were no cocktail bars. Of course, it was going to do well, right? And everybody wants craft cocktails. But 8 years ago, it was just like foodies and hipsters that drank craft cocktails, right? Massive overlap in demographic there. Right. And, so when we opened Rick House, everybody was like, specifically people were worried about like, oh, it's not going to work there. The financial district, those guys, the dudes in the suits, they don't want to drink cocktails. They want like vodka Red Bulls.
Right.
So when we went into that place, into that location, we're like, how do we offer cocktails and make people drinks that we believe in without compromising what we do while still reflecting the neighborhood?
Yeah.
If there's one thing I hate and I cannot stand, is when people open up, they shoehorn their product in the neighborhood that doesn't want it.
Got it.
And then they blame the neighborhood that it's not busy.
Oh yeah, it's their fault.
It's like, no, it's your fault for not understanding your clientele.
That's a really interesting parallel right now. Yeah.
So what we went into with just the mentality of like, a lot of the cocktail bars back then were like, no, we don't make Cosmo, screw you. And Red Bull's the devil,
right?
Whatever, right? Just people being dicks and stuff. So we went into that with the mentality, we're like, look, we're going to open, we're not going to carry products we don't believe in, but at the same time, like we're going to be humble,
right?
Put good drinks in people's hands,
because it's not about us, right?
No, it's
about
not.
The people, man.
Yeah.
It's really, really strange because there's a few places that I just keep seeing more of this where it's like, oh, this product does this, right? I don't even fucking drink it. Pour it down your drain, dude. I mean,
get out of here, man.
It's stupid, right? Like this is not about us. It's about our customers.
Yeah, it's about good times. And even this, I mean, I drink good mixo. I mean, I'm sorry, I drink good tequila,
because you can, yeah.
Because we can, and because I know the product. But if I was at a party and someone hands me a shot of Cuervo Gold, I will drink it in a minute.
You're not gonna be a dick about it.
No, it's like it's about the hospitality. This person extended me a courtesy, and I'm gonna take it. So it's like we have to remember. It's like we're not curing cancer here. We're putting good drinks in people's hands. We're facilitating good times.
Exactly.
Right. And if we can do it within parameters that we feel good about, then, all the better. But just because I won't carry the product at my house or at my bar doesn't mean that I'm not going to drink it.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't mean I'm not actually, I'm not going to like enjoy drinking it because I still will. You're with friends.
Absolutely.
So
that's whiskey's
it's important
like that,
for people
dude.
To keep that in mind,
It really is. And it's an interesting message. And so I'm trying to like dig in because you feel like a humble guy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people that
I have no reason not to be, you know?
Well, no, but this is because maybe you just understand that, like, don't take yourself so fucking seriously.
Yeah.
You're a comedic guy.
How old's, I mean, I was just reading about the Big Bang Theory yesterday, you know, in depth. And you're just like thinking about in the beginning, you know, there was nothing. It all came from this speck. And who knows where the hell it's going to go hundreds of millions of years from now. You're like, when you think about just like craft cocktails, what a small speck we are and all that. In the scope of time, it reminds you like, hey, maybe chill the fuck out.
Yeah, dude,
and
just enjoy it. Things are constantly changing. Do you think that kind of these later chapters, because it's kind of where I'm catching you, I think plenty has been said about what you've done at Polite Provisions, but Boilermaker is kind of the recent chapter. When did you end up moving? Obviously, you probably knew plenty of people in New York. When did you end up moving out there?
I was out there last year for about 9 months.
Yeah.
And we still get back there pretty often. I love New York.
Totally. I mean, you talk about the balance, man. SoCal and then New York.
Yeah.
Completely different.
But I love New York, and there's just something about that city. There's a vibrancy and like an electricity that flows through that city.
Yeah.
That's like, it's difficult to find anything like that anywhere in the world.
I think so.
But I feel like whenever I walk around in Southern California, I just walk way faster than everybody. And I always have. And it's like my whole family, it's like, except my mom, my whole family, we just walk really fast.
Yeah.
So it's like, I love it. It's like when I go to New York, I'm like, oh, perfect. Everybody walks my speed.
I just belong. Go to London, dude. Oh, Jesus.
Just people just like, you know, hogging the sidewalk. It drives me crazy. So there's something about the city that I just, you know, I feel like somebody like me who's super hyper and always likes to be busy, I fit right in there.
It's perfect.
And I can be surrounded by other people like me. And I like their whole, I like the approach of drinking. Like, I feel like, especially coming up, you know, New York cocktail scene was just always such an inspiration to me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I felt it was very classically driven, you know?
Absolutely.
It's about like doing a lot with a little and just understanding that the technique is just as important as the ingredients, if not more so.
We'll go back to the Beatles for a second, right? I use this analogy a lot.
Yeah.
So you listen to Abbey Road. No, sorry, not wrong example. Revolver.
Yeah.
Simple. Really pretty deconstructed. Obviously, George Martin did a shit ton of editing. But then go into Let It Be. Phil Spector thinks it's got to be strings on everything. Let's get some bells and stuff. And then how did that... It really destroys the root idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just overcloud. It doesn't have to be that complicated.
No.
Are you a guy that prefers 3 perfect ingredients versus, I already know the answers, but 3 perfect ingredients to 7 really esoteric and wild ingredients?
Yes. Yeah, I like drinks. I like drinks where all the ingredients shine.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't mean like, you know, I'll have a zombie or something, right? With like, you know, 11 ingredients, 12 ingredients. And you know, it creates this like it creates a zombie. You taste it, like that's a zombie, right? Because that creates like a, you know,
it's almost like
you take all these ingredients to create one big flavor, right? That flows through. But I mean, I like it with, you know, speaking for, you know, for most cocktails, I like to taste all the ingredients themselves, especially the spirit. So sometimes when someone hands me a drink with like 8 ingredients, I taste it. I'm like, you could change this. I don't even know what this base spirit is.
Right.
You could change it to anything and no one would notice. Like, say it's like a bourbon drink. I'm like, you could change this cognac to like aged rum or cachaça and nobody
wouldn't matter.
Notice.
Yeah.
Maybe cachaça somebody knows. But you're like, because, and it's not just that. It's not because, you know, we can't taste this. We don't know spirits, but it's rather because like the spirit is so buried under 1,000 flavors that it really doesn't become, man. You know, it's like those drinks sometimes I think can be guilty of masking the flavor of the spirit rather than enhancing it.
And you almost wonder if that's like conceived by the big companies to hire.
You know? Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? Like maybe now, I don't know. I think people get way too involved creatively with stuff and they're just like, I'm just gonna add this and this and this. But a great artist knows one thing, and that is when to stop. Yeah.
Also, I'm also a believer in like what needs to be stripped away. Like sometimes I'll come up with a cocktail and then I'll be like, okay, or my staff, and we're like kind of, you know, running it through the gauntlet.
Yeah.
And we think like, okay, what is not essential? What needs to come out of this drink?
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes I find that we start just out of habit, we start adding more stuff, like we're making a pot of stew or something.
Right.
And it actually like compromises the drink at a certain stage.
I think so too.
I mean, it's like that. There's a quote, the old Michelangelo quote where, you know, somebody asked him like, hey, how do you like sculpt something? Like I'm looking at David, how do you sculpt it? And then Michelangelo was like, oh, it's really easy. I just start with the big marble slab and I chip away everything that's not David.
Yeah. That's a brilliant way to look at it.
Where it's like, okay, wow, I think, you know, but it's that same perspective where it's like when I'm looking at a cocktail, it's like, what doesn't belong here?
Yeah.
And eventually you strip it back. And then eventually you're going to hit a point where you strip so much it lost a little bit. It lost something. You're like, okay, now add that back.
Then you know exactly.
Then
how
that's
far,
where we were supposed to stop.
It's a brilliant way to. It's a reductive thing instead of an additive, because people keep. It's the same thing with music. I go with music all the time.
Adding.
Dude, you just keep adding. You lose. I can't hear the bass now. Right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
And the bass line might have been one of the best parts of the song.
Always. Well, it depends.
Yeah, it should be,
dude.
you know?
But you're right, and you could just the true heart of the drink, the true narrative of it is completely muddled.
Yeah.
You know. So with Boilermaker, and every time you open up a new concept, and this is the second that you've opened, it's yours, right?
Second, that's mine. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you keep thinking I need to reinvent myself, or is it just what does the neighborhood, the people need? Yeah,
definitely. I guess the best way to put it is this is the way I think about it. If you have one concept in mind and you're, potential bar owner, this is my concept, I'm going to do this. And then you find a location, you're like, okay, cool, this is where I'm putting this bar. You've already done it wrong.
Interesting, okay.
What you need to do is when you find a location, then you're like, this is a good location. What does this neighborhood need?
Yeah.
Because then you'll totally understand it, right? Like, say where I used to work, Bourbon and Branch, San Francisco. Fantastic bar, does great. It's an institution, been there for 10, 11 years. Mm. That bar did great where it's at. If we open that across the street from the local college, it might not do so well, because you know what? College kids don't want to speak easy. We have to sit down and be quiet. They want a place. There a lot of these guys are working part time and they're taking full loads. Like, they're stressed out. They want to let loose on the weekends. Yeah. So what they want a college bar or a place to get really good drinks. Or where they can party and have fun and be loud.
Right.
So maybe a concept of a bar that's like a party bar with good drinks might work there.
Sure.
Or maybe just a regular sports bar. So it's important to just always know what each neighborhood is looking for and what it needs.
Yeah. So I think you're right. Like, I'm not going to make you think that I'm the right thing. I'm going to cater. Again, it's about ourselves or the community versus ourselves. Right.
Or, another way of doing it is maybe they could do a speakeasy there, but the speakeasy would be in the back of a bar.
Right. Nestled into the, yeah.
You see that a lot in DC where they have like a split concept bar. Right. It's like the downstairs is like, cornhole and beers and real simple cocktails that are good, right? And then the back room is like reservation only, and it's a smaller area, but it's like, so you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Two tempos there.
Yeah, because otherwise you can't just go to a neighborhood and just tell them what they need to have.
That's fucking ridiculous.
That's silly. That's silly. And then, then they complain that it's not busy, and they're like, the neighborhood doesn't understand us. It's like, no, you don't understand your neighborhood.
How long did it take you to learn that, you think? Because no one comes out of the gate knowing that.
Shit, I don't know. I think, I used to DJ.
Oh,
so I think that might have something to do with it. That might have something to do with it.
Yeah, people are really, really downers right now.
Yeah.
It's because of what you're playing, man.
Yeah, right? Where I did used to DJ, and I would get mad in my mind because I was like, I'm gonna drop, like, I'm going to do these really crazy mixes, man. Right. And no one's going to understand it. It's going to be so cool. And then when you're in a room of, like, a bunch of people like you're like, they're all digging it. Like, man, that's so cool, And then, but then you do you play for like a wedding crowd. They just want to dance and they think
Michael
you're crazy.
Jackson. That's all they want, man.
Yeah, and it's like, but that doesn't mean that you can't play good cuts for them just because they want to dance, right?
Yeah.
So I think honestly, that's probably one of the big influences on me.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that maybe it's funny because there are a good amount of DJs in this industry, man. Yeah. People that were doing live music, people that were like know how to cater to others.
Yeah.
Which then kind of brings me to the question. I think about podcasts. I think about having interpersonal kind of communication with people. Your Bartenders at Large, which was a series, it's now being translated into a larger film, which again we'll be seeing here in just a moment. This kind of chapter, was it something? Do you have an inclination to be a therapist? Do you want to get into TV, radio? Where does this kind of spark come from?
I'm open to do anything, just as long as it's always like related to the bar and cocktails. Like, just because I feel like that's where my heart's at, and that's what I'm in love with. So, like, to me, when I see like the online series or the film, that's just my passion for the bar.
Yeah.
Manifested into something visual or in terms of like podcast. But I'd be open to do just about anything, just as long as it related back to food and drink in some way.
And people.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, I think, though, what's interesting about podcasts, right? So a lot of the people say, you just talk about the industry. You're like, well, yeah, kind of, but we're all people, right? We're fucking people. We're people serving people. If we're bad people, we're not going to be good people that people are serving, et cetera, et cetera. So I almost feel like as things evolve, the series maybe increases. You said you're just around about a year now. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks.
It's a great milestone. That maybe you will start like talking to actors. You will start talking to athletes.
If it's in terms of cocktails, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that
just
actually
talk
would
to
be.
like, you know.
But you're
like,
gonna.
All right, Matt Damon. When did the old fashioned really, you know, knock your socks off?
And put down that white wine, Matt. Let's talk about the old fashioned.
You know, because I feel like you have to have a passion for it. So I feel like as long as everything's like ties back to food and drinks and somehow,
yeah,
like I'm happy.
You're comfortable with that.
Yeah, and also I still think to a large extent, so much of like good cocktails in the cocktail world, so much of us is still like kind of a little bit insulated.
Yeah,
you know, obviously that's changing rapidly across the country. But it's like I like it when I go to, I guess when I go to a place where I wouldn't expect a good cocktail.
Yeah.
You know, and you get an amazing drink. Like, look at this. Look at the Alamo. They got amazing cocktails, amazing
man.
drinks.
It's incredible.
And it's at a movie theater. I'll tell you what, like 10 years ago, if you told someone like you can get an amazing, you know, amazing cocktail,
right,
a perfectly made Boulevardier at a movie theater while you're watching Doctor Strange, people think you're crazy.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
it's
get
like,
out of
I'm
here.
watching Medea and getting incredible gimlet.
Yeah,
what the fuck is going on? Dude?
Exactly.
It's almost strange, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I love it, man. It's amazing.
It shows a lot of progress.
You know?
Does the insular nature of the information and kind of the social element of this industry, is that one of the impetus for you saying, all right, I want to do a movie. I want to share this with other people? Because once you go to the movie medium, you can share it with anybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, I think that, you know, that made us so happy about making Bartender a large documentary is that it reminded us, it showed us like, look, dude, there's amazing cocktails being made everywhere now. Like you go to Boise, Idaho. I've had cocktails in Boise that were just as good as anything I've ever had in London or Singapore.
It's amazing.
Right? Amazing service, great drinks. And it's only going to continue to happen. I mean, look, while I was on the road trip, I was at like some random little truck stop in like Santa Fe, outside of Santa Fe actually. And they had like single origin coffee, you know?
Really?
And you're like, if you told somebody that, you know, 15 years ago, they would have thought you were crazy. And, you know, coffee was a little burnt, but whatever. but hey, but it was better than anything that ever would have been available.
Yeah.
It's better than like, you know, any of the instant stuff that you would have had just, you know, as recently as a few years ago.
Yeah.
So it just reminds me like the world's changing, you know, and it's important for the cocktail community to understand that and adapt to it. Otherwise, you know, I feel like a lot of the people in like the cocktail establishment are going to be left behind and become irrelevant.
Yeah, I think you're right. And in terms of your role in the production of the film, are you producer? Are you director? Have you written some of it out? What exactly did you want to achieve with it?
Yeah, well, I directed it, but I probably just because I couldn't afford a director.
Dude, that's how all the early Cassavetes work stuff. So you know, good on you.
Yeah, I never was like, oh man, I want to be a film director. It was just more like, man, who's going to do this well me?
And you tell me it's like, oh, well, I'm going to stay real close to the industry. But it's like, wait a minute, you just became kind of a video host. Yeah. All right, okay, fine. Yeah, it's about the industry. You're a movie director now. I'm really not sure that you're not going to be Hollywood, man.
Oh, yeah, right, dude. All right, man. Yeah, we'll see, man. Well, if someone wants to pay me to make a movie, man, I'll make one. Yeah, I'll direct one of the next Marvel movies.
That's good. Yeah. Good money in it. Everybody that directors have mustaches.
It'll probably be the worst one because I'm utterly unqualified for it. But whatever.
Why the fuck is Captain America drinking again? He's not getting anything done in this sequel. Right?
Is that a zombie? Yeah, all the cocktail references. But
so tell me some of the cities that you've been screening the movie at.
Oh man, we've screened it all over. We've screened it. The furthest away is London.
Oh, killer!
So we screened it in London. Then we've done San Francisco, New York, L.A., Chicago, Denver, San Diego. I think there's a lot of these.
That's a lot,
kind
though.
Of blurred together.
Yeah.
Then we did Dallas. We're doing Austin today. We're Houston tomorrow.
Wow.
Then starting next week, we're gonna do like another 12 cities.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I
will tell you this, man, about making a movie that I've realized this now is that like making the movie is like the easiest part of it. Then it's like, then how do you get in front of people?
Oh, right.
Which is what we didn't realize. So it's like, okay, cool, you made this awesome movie, right on. It's like, oh, cool, now who's going to see it? And they're like, oh, man, I got to put this in front of people? I don't just have like a marketing department that does this? You're like, no.
Not if you're directing.
No,
you don't have money.
You don't have that. So I will say it's like, had we known how much work it was going to be, we never would have made it.
Yeah.
But now that I've done it, we're going to do it again.
That's incredible. Is it a sequel? Is it a installment? What kind of Ken Burns War kind of stuff?
We'll see, man. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens. We have a few ideas we're batting around right now.
That's killer.
But whatever we do, it'll be in the same vein.
Same vein.
Yeah.
Still really close to the heart with food and wine. All right. Well, so this is great. We got about 20 minutes. We'll go and check this movie out, doing a Q&A. There's a happy hour at Half Step afterwards, which, of course, by the time this airs, people will have to just go get fucking regular drinks at happy hour.
Yeah, true.
Half Step. But you're married,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been traveling a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
How does that, again, a common thread with a lot of people, man, it places a lot of strain on the marriages when it's that kind of thing, like husband's gone, wife's gone.
Yeah.
How's it been?
Well, I'm lucky because my wife works with me.
Oh, good.
So she comes with me on all these trips.
Oh,
I mean, we
good.
even have our dogs with us. Our dogs flew out.
Do you
here with us
really?
and are staying at the Airbnb.
That's incredible.
So yeah, I try to make sure that, I mean, we're going to be on the road for
It's a long time.
probably solid 9 months promoting this movie.
Damn.
So because of that, we want to make sure we can feel at home as possible.
Yeah.
Without, anybody getting too stressed out or feeling like they're missing out. So my wife is pretty much,
That's perfect.
She was a producer for the film as well. So, she joins me on the Q&A and
Yeah.
helps with everything. Then the dogs are just there to
Make
the
it
dogs
feel-
even make a cameo appearance in the film as well. Yeah.
I saw some dog food bowls on the stage. Perhaps maybe
Yeah,
they're
that
going to
might
enjoy
have
the
been them.
Q&A.
They don't join us, for the on-stage question answer, but
Well, it's incredible, dude. I think the most exciting thing for me, and
Mm-hmm.
you've done a lot of work. You've been recognized in a lot of different ways, but that target is always moving one for you,
always.
And I have no fucking idea what you're gonna do next. Like,
Me neither,
this
man.
is like it's like
Me
word
neither.
salad. I have no. Is he gonna make a country record? Like what the fuck's
I don't
gonna
know,
happen?
man. I don't know. I always just try to tell myself, like, as long as I always tie it back to cocktails
Yeah,
and, hospitality, like, it's always going to be a natural extension,
yeah, because you love it.
Yeah, it's what we love.
That's killer, man. It's really been a pleasure talking to you. And thanks so much for showing up today.
Yeah, brother, thanks for having me, man.
Sir. We're going to go. We got to get a drink. We got to see this great movie, man. Bartenders at Large, 2 p.m. Really looking forward to it, Eric.
And guys, don't forget to check it out.
Oh, please.
Go to bartenderatlarge.com for more information on tour dates, the online series, and T-shirts.
Absolutely. We'll make sure to cross-link and do marketing for each other. How about that?
Right on, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eric. So there we have it, Mr. Erick Castro, Plight Provisions, Boilermaker NYC, Simple Serve Consulting, Management, Brand Consulting, all of these great projects. Eric is always expanding his mind. He's learning how to be a filmmaker. He is now an accomplished podcaster. It was great to interview a fellow podcaster. And Eric, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit and chat with me before the screening of Bartender at Large. I think you're rallying the troops. You're creating a great avenue for people to talk and express themselves honestly about the things they're experiencing in this industry, whether it is isolation, whether it is health problems, whether it is social anxiety, lots of different things. And it was great to sit and chat with you before the screening of your film, Bartender at Large. It was a great film. You did a great job with the sound and the video production, and I'm not sure what you can't do. And frankly, that's a little bit threatening from one podcaster to another. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter which workout you're thinking about constructing before you head into work every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or if you're thinking Orange is the New Black is pretty good, but is it that good to sit through yet another season? Please keep dancing.